Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Paranormal Lens, hosted by or presented by Jotnick's Paranormal. One of those things, I don't know. I'm Chad Thomas, your host tonight, here with my co-host on that side, Jamie Widener. How are you doing tonight, Jamie?
Chad, I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. It's been a busy week, lots going on, and we are sliding right into that holiday season, aren't we?
Yeah, 'tis the season for
Uh-huh.
sure. I did admit something. I started Christmas shopping.
Did you do it
So
today at lunchtime on Amazon like I did?
I Target, but it's close. Amazon happened earlier this evening.
Uh-huh.
Um, I shouldn't say I started weeks ago, but there's still stuff to do, and that's the thing. Like the waiting of it, the logistics of how to do it now comes into play.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, yeah, it'll happen. It's like an annual miracle,
Mhm.
It just happens. It works.
It
So.
does. It's a
I
Chris
have, I have
Christmas.
I have confidence in my abilities to wait till the last minute and still get it done. I've been doing it for years. I'm a trained
Mhm.
professional.
Well, we don't want to get in the way of progress, Jamie.
That's fair. All right.
So so
This is
anyway,
not progress, by the way.
no,
Wait until the last minute is not progress. That's the word. That's the antithesis of progress. Ah,
uh, but
that's
it
my vocab word for the day. I'm done. Good night,
and
all.
is that your word? You're gone, and he's gone. Get back here, Jamie. I can't do this on
All
my
right. All
own.
right. All right.
So so anyway, yeah, we got the holidays coming up, so that means that this will be our final broadcast for the year.
Yep.
We're going to take some time off after this, enjoy it with
Like
family.
your Christmas shopping.
Well, yeah, there's that. Yeah, I'm gonna spend some time with my dad and the kids over the next couple weeks, and I'm
Good
sure
idea.
you got stuff planned too. And
Yeah, lots of family stuff. Obviously, we all have to do that kind of stuff. And then just as of the end of my workday tomorrow until the 30th, I'm on vacation too. So I'm
good,
looking forward to some downtime,
yeah,
just some
um,
recharge and refresh time. We all need that once in a while.
yeah. I'm having a nice, relaxing weekend getaway. I'm going out to my friend's house in Central PA, well, almost Western PA, and hanging out. They have the hot tub under the stars with the snow coming down. Relaxing, and you're going to New York, aren't you?
Yeah, that's the opposite of being relaxed. Yes, yeah, we're going. There's Broadway on our future Saturday, so uh,
Uh-huh.
yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Okay.
But I'm the driver
Okay.
to at least the train to get us to the city, and then the driver home. So um, Ah, that's the worst that could happen.
Yeah. Well, you just
Hey,
hang
there's
it.
Jim. Good evening, Jim.
There's Jim. Yep.
Ho, ho, hello to you too, sir.
So our resident Santa Claus. We
Residence
appreciate that.
in the
So,
house.
mhm. So anyway,
Yeah,
speaking of
let's.
holidays,
What are we doing tonight?
well, I am going to talk a little bit about holiday ghost stories. Okay.
Okay.
Or holiday tales. So, Jamie, you're familiar, I'm sure, with the song "It's the Most Wonderful Time of the Year," right?
Yes, I,
Okay.
I, I have a parody of that. That is the most wonderful time of the day
Okay.
when it's bedtime for the kids.
Okay.
So
You don't need to sing it right now. That's okay.
no, no, that's okay. That's okay. But they're not a fan of that version. So for
I'm
some
I'm
reason, I don't know.
I'm sure they're not. Um, anyway, that song was made popular by Andy Williams, but it was written by Eddie Pola and George Weil. There's a line in that song that goes, "There'll be scary ghost stories and tales of the glories of Christmases long, long ago." Now, other than needing something to rhyme with tales of the glories, why would they have mentioned ghost stories? Any thoughts?
Because there's been ghosts for a long, long time.
Well, maybe,
Uh,
but it's not something that I typically think of when I think of Christmas. You know, for
well,
most.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm going to spin here, but and I might be stepping into something for later, perhaps. But I think we all know the tale of Scrooge and
Hmm.
the ghosts of Christmas, the three
Hmm.
ghosts,
Right.
past, present, future. So that's where my mind goes
Okay. But,
to
but
stuff
that's
like that, because I would have to assume it's contemporary to some degree.
right.
Um,
But that's one thing about Christmas that's a
that's
ghost.
that's where it ends for me, I guess, too,
Right.
though.
Well, if you think about Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, we had
He
the
had a very shiny nose.
we also had the abominable snowman in that series, didn't we?
Yeah.
So there's two things, but why? Why? How does that work into our culture? Because, like today, when I think of the December holiday season, there are a number of holidays that come to mind: Hanukkah, Christmas, Kwanzaa, and the winter solstice, and Yule, that are just a few of them. And in the United States, when we think of these holidays, we think of typical festive times. Hanukkah is a Jewish holiday celebrating the miracle in which the menorah at the Second Temple kept burning for 8 nights, even though there was only enough untainted olive oil for one night. Christmas, celebrated by Christians, is a holiday that recognizes the birth of Jesus Christ, the Christ child. Kwanzaa is a secular holiday that was created in 1966 by Maulana Ron Karenga to first reaffirm and restore African heritage and culture, second, to introduce and reinforce the Naguzo Saba, or seven principles, and third, to serve as a nationally celebrated communal and non heroic holiday. So I think that's an important thing in the African culture, is that a lot of their holidays are based on heroes and things like this. And this was just a communal holiday to celebrate everybody. So the winter solstice has been celebrated in many cultures since prehistory, with some of the earliest recorded celebrations dating back to the Neolithic period. The winter solstice is a significant time of year because it marks the symbolic death and rebirth of the sun and the gradual return to longer days. So there are many festivals that can be found based on the winter solstice. Probably the most well known is the Yule, which originally was a Celtic festival of feasting and merriment, where Yule logs were burned to symbolize the return of the sun. So, on a side note, the term solstice means sun stands still. So, on the winter solstice, the sun appears to stop moving across the sky and change very little in position that day. So, just I found that interesting, so I threw it in there. These all seem like festive times, and in the United States, that is typically how we celebrate these holidays. Most are celebrated with a feast of some type. I remember several years ago being invited to the Jewish Community Center in Lancaster for their Hanukkah celebration. Now, Jamie, if you ever have the opportunity to go to a Jewish community center to celebrate Hanukkah, it is well worth the price of admission. They put out a great feast, and it was amazing. It included brisket, potato latkes, and challah bread. You know, just it was all about happiness and joy and celebration. 50-50 drawings, because there's always got to be gambling somehow, but things like that.
Yeah.
Family, and it was about festive, and things like that. It was a party. So, and that's typically when we go into the season, that's what we're looking at, work parties, friends parties, things like that. Right?
Yeah, I
So,
think so. Right? That's fair.
well, it turns out that in other countries, there's a darker part of the holiday tradition, and that is telling ghost stories. It's not known when it started, but like many cultural customs, it was an oral tradition that was handed down generation to generation. The long nights may have led to spooky stories being told. The peak of popularity is believed to come around the Victorian era. Spooky storytelling gave people something to do during the long, dark evenings before electricity. Tara Moore, an assistant professor of English at the Elizabethtown College, says the long midwinter nights meant folks had to stop working early, and they spent their leisure hours huddled close to the fire. She wrote Victorian Christmas in print and was the editor of the Valancourt Book of Victorian Christmas Ghost Stories. That's a mouthful. She continues, plus, you didn't need to be literate to retell ghost stories. As the Industrial Revolution hit, people were leaving the small villages and moving to the cities. No longer were they gathered around the hearth and fire listening to the supernatural stories, but they wanted access to them. Professor Moore said, fortunately, Victorian authors like Elizabeth Gaskell, Margaret Oliphant, and Arthur Conan Doyle worked through the fall to cook up these stories and have them ready to print in time for Christmas. It turns out that these stories were available to anyone who wanted them. You could find a very inexpensive paper-bound book that had stories, or if you were wealthy, you could purchase a leather-bound Christmas annual that would be displayed on your coffee table. Not only were all classes of people able to purchase the books, but they were also characters in the stories. You could find working class characters as well as characters who were placed in mansions and castles. These upper class settings were intended to invite readers from all classes to an idealized upper crust Christmas the type today's fans of Downton Abbey still enjoy as entertainment, more ads. So we're going to get to what you talked about here earlier. We all have read or know of the novella A Christmas Carol. In 1843, Charles Dickens introduced the world to Scrooge and the Three Ghosts of Christmas. This was not Dickens' only foray into holiday hauntings. Sarah Cleto, a folklorist specializing in British literature, says that Dickens played a huge part in popularizing the genre in England. He wrote a bunch of different Christmas novellas, several which involved ghost stories specifically, she says. And then he started editing more and more Christmas ghost stories from other people and working those into the magazines that he was already editing. And it just caught like wildfire. Charles Dickens started shaping the themes of Christmas literature in general, Professor Moore states, by formalizing expectations about themes like forgiveness and reunion during the holiday season. So that's where all that came in is just through storytelling through Charles Dickens. So there's a little bit of back history with that. Now, we know many traditions were carried from England and other countries to America during the Victorian era, but telling ghost stories never really was a big thing here. A Christmas Carol caught on because Dickens was one of the most famous writers in the world, but it was more likely because he already had a following, not because of the paranormal side of his story. Americans preferred the pretty and sweet side of Christmas in their stories. There were authors who tried to infuse the supernatural into holiday stories, such as Nathaniel Hawthorne, Henry James, and even Washington Irving, but it never took hold. So if you go back through some of their stories, you will find some of these themes, but like they just never popularized. Brittany Warman, a folklorist specializing in Gothic literature, surmised that the country's beliefs about things like magic and superstitions were all part of the reason the holiday ghost stories never took hold. In America, we generally had a bit of resistance to the supernatural in a way that European countries didn't, she explained. When you came to America, you came with a fresh start, you came with a secular mindset, and the idea that you were leaving the past behind. And some of these spooky superstitions were thought to be part of the past. Another reason the holiday tradition never took off here could be the fact that the Irish and the Scottish immigrants had established the Halloween traditions. And that is when the people here thought the veil was the thinnest. That really impacted cultural here. That really impacted culture here because they brought with them the concept similar to Halloween, and that became for America the time period for ghosts, Warman explains. So that may explain why we typically don't tell these stories during December. So what are your thoughts so far on this, Jamie?
I can see that. Yeah, and I get the softening of Christmas. Like that makes sense as well. I mean, it's just and when if we are looking at it from an objective perspective, Halloween we call now the spooky season because
Hmm.
that's us, but it's our time of year. Um,
Right.
but it does make sense. So we're kind of depending on it, how well it's done or how much it's done. I should say more so how much it's done. Maybe we're just kind of in that overload or burnout phase by the time we roll in through November, and we're looking for something less when
Right.
it comes to the holidays.
Well, and
It's a different value system as well,
I
like
think so. I
from
think
that
that's part of
perspective.
it because it is the darkest night. It is the longest night, and all those things. So maybe we look at the ghost with Halloween, and that's the time when we're starting to move into that dark season. And maybe we're just looking for a little bit of light and joy and happiness when it is so dark. So we're not carrying that through.
Sure.
So I think maybe we're saying the same thing there, but.
Well, there's something else here too, and I'm going to step out of my depth to say this, but it takes me back to our episode on Krampus,
Hmm.
and you may be getting to Krampus. I don't know.
No,
Maybe
no.
no. Okay. So, but what I want to say about it, obviously, go back. It's a great episode. I
Mhm.
recommend it because it was my episode, so I can say that. But still, Christmas then in the 1300s in Germany or whatever Germany was then, Bavaria, Austria, whatnot, was the eve of December 5th,
Mhm.
not December 25th. And Christmas may have had a different date in other places as well. So, that might have something to do with how we kind of got there. I mean, obviously the calendar was established and we've all followed the Roman calendar for a long time, kind of thing. But
Mhm.
maybe that's some of this too. Is just was not. It isn't the time out of hand date that it is.
Right.
Always was. So I don't know. That's a bit of a stretch, perhaps, but
Right.
there could be something in that as well.
Mhm. Yeah,
I
maybe.
don't know. It it gives if you always have a darkness or more of a sinister side to everything, then it just doesn't give the positivity to something. It's like the yin and yang. It has to have good to have bad, all that stuff. But if you got to have it gives Christmas a special spot if it doesn't have the dark side to it.
Right.
And it does just
Mhm.
makes it be about the positivity, the light, peace on earth, all that stuff.
Right.
Joy to man. I feel like I'm singing a song here, but
Yeah. Yeah.
but there's a lot of them. That's another thing. And I'm not sure if we're going to go here either. But Christmas carols, there are a lot of them are so positive and
Right.
hopeful, and it is what we have at the end of the year. I think we all get a little reminiscent. We all look back on the year we had. Maybe that's part of the reason why it's such a wholesome thing at Christmas time is that we are holding the ones we love dearly closer at that time to celebrate where we've been and
Mhm.
look forward to where we're going in the new year.
Yeah. I'm actually not. I'm going to end it sort of here, but I have a couple stories to tell. I don't want to go too far into the like. We could go hours into all the different backgrounds of Christmas and things like that. But I found it interesting that the one woman referenced the fact that when they came here, they wanted to leave parts of the past in the past, even though they were bringing other traditions. Um,
Sure.
because you typically when you're moving to a new place, you want to hold those things you that were part of your life, and apparently the darkness was not something they wanted to hold on to. So
Oh, it's an opportunity for new beginnings.
yeah, so which that's what the solstice is all about, is new beginnings. So let's start with the new beginnings, but
There you go.
that's not the route I'm going to take. I was looking for stories, and I was like, oh, I'll tell three or four of these stories. Well, I um, um, started looking at them. Some of them were like a novel. like, so I didn't want to sit here and read 3 hours worth of Christmas stories, Jamie. I mean, I know you would have appreciated it, but I'm not going to do that. So,
I would have started calling you Steve for a second there if you did.
so, so I gathered two stories from the past.
Yeah.
So let's imagine, and you called me, you'd said this earlier. I was hoping to pull up the Yule channel and have the fireplace crackling, and but I couldn't figure out how to do it effectively. So let's imagine that we're bundled up in front of the fireplace, hot toddies in hand, and listening to the stories. Can you do that? So, all right.
Oh, I could definitely do that. Don't worry. I'm already there.
All right. So the first story is called "The Christmas Meeting" by Rosemary Timperley. She says, it goes, "I've never spent Christmas alone before. It gives me an uncanny feeling sitting alone in my furnished room with my head full of ghosts and a room full of voices of the past. It's a drowning feeling, all the Christmases of the past coming back in a mad jumble. The childish Christmas with a house full of relations, a tree in the window, sixpences in the pudding, and the delicious, crinkly stockings in the dark morning. The adolescent Christmas with mother and father, the war, the bitter cold, and the letters from abroad. The first grown up Christmas with a lover, the snow and the enchantment, red wine and kisses, and the walk in the dark before midnight with the ground so white and the stars diamond bright in the black sky. So many Christmases through the year. And now, the first Christmas alone. But not quite loneliness. A feeling of companionship with all the other people who are spending Christmas alone, millions of them, past and present. A feeling that if I close my eyes, there will be no past or future, only an endless present, which is time, because it is all we ever have. Yes, however cynical you are, however irreligious, it makes you feel queer to be alone at Christmas time. I'm absurdly relieved when the young man walks in. There's nothing romantic about it. I'm a woman of nearly 50, a spinster schoolma'am with the grim dark hair, myopic eyes that once were beautiful. and he's a kid of 20, rather unconventionally dressed with a flowing wine colored tie, black velvet jacket, and brown curls that could do with a taste of the barber's scissor. The effeminacy of his dress is belied by his features: narrow, piercing, blue eyes, and arrogant jutting nose and chin. Not that he looks strong. The skin is fine drawn over the prominent features, and he is very white. He bursts in without knocking, then pauses, says, "I'm sorry, I thought this was my room." He begins to go out, then hesitates and says, "Are you alone?" "Yes." "It's queer being alone at Christmas, isn't it? May I stay and talk?" "I'd be glad if you would." He comes right in and sits down by the fire. "I hope you don't think I came here on purpose. I really did think it was my room," he explains. "I'm glad you made the mistake, but you're a very young person to be alone at Christmas time." "I wouldn't go back to the country to my family. It would hold up my work. I'm a writer." "I see." I can't help smiling a little. That explains his unusual dress. And he takes himself so seriously, this young man. "Of course, you mustn't waste a precious moment of writing," I say with a twinkle. "No, not a moment. That's what my family won't see. They don't appreciate urgency." "Families are never appreciative of the artistic nature." "No, they aren't," he agrees quickly. "What are you writing?" "Poetry and a diary combined. I call it My Poems and I, by Francis Randall. That's my name. My family say there's no point in my writing, but I'm too young, but I don't feel very young. Sometimes I feel like an old man with too much to do before he dies, revolving faster and faster on the wheel of creativeness." "Yes, yes, exactly. You understand. You must read my work sometime. Please read my work. Read my work." A note of desperation in his voice, a look of fear in his eyes makes me say, "We're both getting too solemn for Christmas Day. I'm going to make you some coffee, and I have plum cake." I move about, clattering cups, spooning coffee into my percolator, but I must have offended him, for when I look around, I found that he has left me. I'm absurdly disappointed. I finish making coffee, however, then turn to the bookshelf in the room. It is piled high with volumes for which the landlady has apologized profusely. "Hope you don't mind the books, miss, but my husband won't part with them, and there's nowhere to put them. We charge a bit less for this room for that reason." "I don't mind," I said. "Books are good friends." "But these aren't very friendly looking books." I take one at random. Or does some strange fate guide my hand? Sipping my coffee and inhaling my cigarette smoke, I began to read the battered little book, published, I see, in spring of 1852. It's mainly poetry, immature stuff, but vivid. Then there's a kind of diary, more realistic, less affected. Out of curiosity, I see if there are Out of curiosity to see if there are any amusing comparisons, I turn to the entry for Christmas Day, 1851, and I read, "My first Christmas alone. I had a rather odd experience. When I went back to my lodgings after a walk, there was a middle-aged woman in my room. I thought at first I'd walked into the wrong room, but this was not so, and after a pleasant talk she disappeared. I suppose she was a ghost, but I wasn't frightened. I liked her, but I do not feel well tonight. Not at all well. I've never felt ill at Christmas before." A publisher's note followed the last entry. Francis Randall died from a sudden heart attack on the night of Christmas, 1851. The woman mentioned in his final entry in his diary was the last person to see him alive. In spite of requests for her to come forward, she never did. Her identity remains a mystery. So, typical story that has that little odd paranormal twist at the end of it.
Yep,
So,
that's a good one.
mhm.
Reminds me, did you ever see the movie The Others?
I don't think so.
Years ago now, many years ago, probably by now. Nicole Kidman stars in it. It's the Victorian era, I believe, or at least, well, sort of,
Hmm.
World War I era. And she and her children are kind of in a house, and um, they don't ever go outside. Everything's always closed up. And then as the story progresses, and I'm not going to give anything away because this movie's probably 20 years old. If you haven't seen it by now, it's your own fault. Um, but by the progression of the story, you find out that she and they are the ghosts, and people
Okay.
buy the house in a more modern era, and they try to open it up and everything, and they keep trying to combat it to keep it closed. And
Mhm.
the whole story though is told in their perspective, so you have no idea that they are.
Mhm.
So that was I was thinking one of them were
Right.
as the tale was progressing, but I couldn't tell which.
Right. Yeah, it was a well
Yeah,
written little
very, very
piece.
good story. Fantastic.
So I have one more. This one is a legend, so it's not really accredited to anybody. So I don't know. I think this is one of those that sort of was handed down over the years. It's called The Legend of the Mistletoe Bride. It's Christmas Day at the Bramshill house. Snow is drifting slowly down from the sky, the last rays of sunlight exploding the air with reds and yellows. It is a moment that must be cherished immediately, or it will be lost to time forever. But no one is outside to cherish it. A caravan of carriages lines the driveway, leading up to the entrance. The soft window light casts shadows on wheels and vacant horses, all of who are warm and fed in the stables. If you stop and listen, you can hear the sound of clinking glasses and laughter, followed by muffled roaring applause. While there is a celebration, it's not for Christmas. A wedding has just taken place, the wedding of Anne Cope. Around her, the smiling faces of friends and the family gather to give their best wishes. The men shake the hands of the groom, the women converse with the bride under hushed whispers and promiscuous looks towards her newly betrothed. Like lightning, the groom swoops from underneath Anne. She finds herself lifted off the ground and into the arms of her husband. The room shakes in applause and cheers. Apologies, friends, one and all, for my active theory of this young fair maiden. The husband flashes the crowd with a smile. Night is upon us, and I wish to spend it with my betrothed. More applause and laughter echo through the manor. The husband begins his journey from the ballroom to the bedchambers, but Anne is not ready to end the festivities just yet. A moment, my love, she says. I propose a game of sorts before the day beats its end. This she directs towards the guest. Very well, the husband says with enthusiasm, placing Anne on her feet. A game it shall be. It is a simple one, a game of wits. Allow me 5 minutes to find a place to conceal myself. Your task is to seek me. The spoil of victory goes to the one who finds me. The guests were keen, yet no more so than the husband. Anne, too, was keen. She was showing her prowess, after all. 5 minutes to hide, a simple task in a home this grand. You would have trouble finding the entrance, but where to hide there was not an ounce of chance to be found. Somewhere unexpected, somewhere unassuming, somewhere simple. Anne clambers up the grand stair of the manor, gliding through corridors and rooms, climbing higher and higher until she finds herself in the attic. It would be sufficient enough to find a darkened corner to hide in and wait to be found. But Anne doesn't see the fun in that. Anne wants to make this a challenge. She makes her way to the large wooden chest tucked away in the attic, unexpected, unassuming, and simple. No one would think to ever think to look in the attic or in this chest of all places. She opens the chest to find it empty. With excitement, she carefully lowers herself into the chest, careful to keep her bouquet of mistletoe intact. She fits inside perfectly. With some effort, she reaches the lid, closing it on top of her with a heavy clunk. The clunk hides the sound of a hiss and a click. The minutes tick away, perhaps 10, perhaps 30, enough time to Shirley declare herself the victor. Eager to return to her guest and her husband, Anne pushes her hand on the lid to open the chest, but it remains closed. Once more, with all her strength, she pushes the lid, yet it doesn't move an inch. She continues her crusade to open the chest, all the while shouting for her husband, for anyone at all. Panic begins to set in. She pounds her fists on the lid. Her palms and knuckles begin to bruise and bleed. Her screams become desperate and primal as her throat opens and closes from the tears streaming down her face. Any scream she makes is muffled by the screams of her guests calling out her name, making sure that neither ever hears the other. The night slides into days, but there is no appearance of the bride. Her husband has not slept. He had been searching throughout the night in an attempt to find his betrothed. Anne has not slept either. Her dress is stained with blood from broken skin and broken nails, her voice little more than a hoarse whisper as her vocal cords tore hours ago. If she could see it all, she would be staring at a jagged, bloody scratch marks. In a day or two, she will come to realize that the chest is her coffin. The days pass, then a week, then a month, then a year, then a decade. Friends and family have long dismissed Ann Cope's disappearance as her fleeing from life with her husband. As for her husband, he never remarries. He never stops searching for her. He stays in that house, desperate to find a clue as to where his Anne went. It's 50 years now since that night. The husband has become gray and old, lamplight casting a shadow of a bent and broken man. He finds himself in the attic. He is still searching, still hoping for a path that will lead to him to his betrothed. That's when he spies the chest. Perhaps inside will provide a clue. With the strength of a much younger man, he lifts the lid of the chest. Instantaneously, the man's face contorts to fear and horror. His entire body shakes and shivers as his skin turns white and cold. Inside, to his silent and shocked horror, is the skeletal remains of the bride clutching a bundle of mistletoe. A blood-curdling wail echoes through the Bramshill house. So that's, one of the darker sides.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. Ooh. Um, wow.
Yeah, I'm sort of glad we haven't gone that route with some of our Christmas
Y- Well,
celebrations.
you've known me a long time, Chad. When have I been speechless?
I don't know.
That's wow. I didn't know what to say. Like, just wow. What a story.
So yeah, I mean, there were definitely some very good authors, and that put these stories out, and just it was meant to keep you on the edge of your seat, and I think it
Right.
did. So
Well, the tale of the tale of the story, the hook in a good story is the believability, the plausibility. That kind of goes back to last week with urban legends.
Mhm.
Eh, it's a story that's so fantastical that it seems like it could also be true. Like it doesn't
Right,
smell fishy. It doesn't seem fake.
right,
It just seems unrealistic. But then again, maybe so.
right.
This tale is in that put intended spirit.
Hmm.
Where certainly I could see, in my mind's eye at least, I could see someone getting themselves into that situation, and you know the 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 search and the intention of everyone else. If someone's really well hidden, they're not going to be found. At
Right,
least not in the time that they need to be found.
right.
Oh, a tragedy.
Especially when it clicks and hisses, and where did that come from? But,
Well, right. I think Jim says this really well. As Rudolph is cowering in the corner.
so.
Oh, what a story.
And
Well said,
that
Jim.
I just some of the stories I read through, there were a lot like this. I mean, it was just
Sure.
interesting, interesting.
Jim needs some Christmas cookies now. Don't we all, sir? Don't we
So,
all?
but
And maybe
yeah,
a little extra rum in the eggnog tonight. Holy
so
cow.
but I can see sitting by either by a fireplace, or before that sitting by in a cave telling stories, and
Sure.
however told stories back then. But yeah.
I, I don't know about you, but I grew up with you know, furnishings in the home, and I think everybody at some point had a cedar chest, right?
Hmm.
They're really familiar with what it is, and a lot of them have the one I had I had one that was like the blanket storage, for
Hmm.
everybody. So it was in my room because that was a space.
I
It
have
had
my grandmother's at the foot of my bed.
okay, well, yeah, you get it then. So this particular one had a push button on the front that
Yep.
you had to push it, and then the lid would unlatch. Like
Hmm.
why? Like you can't just lift the lid up like a toy box would.
Right.
But that as I'm hearing this, I'm thinking of that particular piece of furniture. And my gosh, if I would ever try to do that, I would have been latched in there too.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, I never thought of that before, but you're right.
yeesh. All
Hmm.
right. Never
At
playing
least you
hide and
smell
seek
like
again.
cedar, Jamie.
The best smelling corpse ever. Um, oh, man, what a way to go too.
Yeah.
No.
So. So yeah, I mean, like I said, I was looking for stories, but I couldn't find a lot of short stories.
Right.
What they were labeling as short stories were, you know, 5 or 6 magazine pages, and that was all. Was
Sure.
a lot of time. So.
Well, sure. I mean, this is of these stories, in the timeline at least. I'm assuming they were written in the era of their timing. They're more like novellas, which was
Hmm.
common to very common.
Hmm.
Because you wanted that depth and the color to the story as well, which you don't always get on a short story.
Right.
Um, so yeah. Okay.
So, so yeah. Any thoughts on this whole, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing that we don't do this, or.
Well, I think people do still do it, and that's I can't speak to everybody's individual and with their traditions, their
Hmm.
family traditions and things like that. I don't think there's ever a bad time for a ghost story or a spooky story. Like it's a change of pace, you
Right.
know, and especially at Christmas time, where everything is so positive and joyful, and I get it, and we want to see, I'm of the generation of the stop animation holiday specials and the Charlie Brown Christmas special and all that stuff.
Frosty
We
the
want to see
Snowman.
that stuff. But, it gets every once in a while you just need to throw a curveball in there, just keep
Yeah.
everybody on their toes. So having to do this or doing this, I say having to do this, but doing this kind of a tradition as well is it's nothing wrong with it. I don't think
No.
there's any issue with it at all. It's
No.
pretty cool. I gotta go find some stories to tell the kids Christmas Eve. I think I
Okay.
might borrow that one actually. That's really great.
So,
So
so yeah, I thought actually I liked both of those stories. I thought they were, but they were written in different ways, and it was
yeah,
really
yeah,
really cool.
absolutely.
So.
Well, where are you at here? I mean, this is obviously you've done the research. You've got a little more depth than I. You've seen more than I have in this case, obviously. So where are you at?
Um, I I think it's interesting that it became a tradition in some parts of the world. And I think you're right. It's having it so sugary sweet like we do gets gets boring. Like so, like like you're saying, throw in a story every now and then, and shake it up. And it's we can't really say is this one paranormal or not. It's just, but it's more like I think what would we do? And I think I think it'd be nice to include some of this and bring back some of that darker side of Christmas, and not Christmas, but the season and things like that. So.
Right. Well, there's in the mediums, the other mediums, especially in the modern era, there are a lot of uh, video and films that are there's like a whole horror subgenre for Christmas.
Hmm.
So you know, s- um, and in that, it's kind of the same idea. It's just a visual presentation instead of a story, like a
Hmm.
verbal story. So, I mean, if you really want to get out there and find stuff, you can certainly. I'm sure that especially as the holidays are here, like certain things you won't be able to find this kind of stuff in the middle of July, but
Right.
um, you can find a good holiday scary movie.
Hmm. Yep. So, I do want to say a lot of the information on how the traditions came from history.com actually.
Yeah,
News Christmas tradition ghost stories, the website. So, um, it was and there's a little bit of other pieces here and there in the two stories, obviously, but yeah, there's a lot of stories out there, Jamie. It's definitely worth reading. I think turning the screw is one that we don't think, or turn of the screw, whatever, you know what I'm talking about. But
I do.
that was one that came up quite a bit. So.
Okay. Well, this obviously with so much more content available, perhaps this is our Christmas special every year is to bring a few more stories to light
Hmm.
and have different volume two next year and three the year after, etc. So I'd be in. I'm in for it.
Okay,
Absolutely.
sounds good.
Speaking of
So
holiday traditions, here is one. There you go.
we're making our own.
How they start. You got to start. We got to start with something,
Yep.
right?
So, all right. Any other thoughts on this, Jamie?
Not a lot, but I just want to say thanks first of all for the topic. And
Hmm.
I think as well as I do this when we pick something. and put it on the schedule, our production schedule to get to it. We don't always know what it's going to be till we get there. And sometimes not even sure really until we get to air. What we're going to be exactly saying. So, I appreciate the volumes of things you had to look through and the work that went into picking these two select stories. They're both very good.
Hmm.
Um, and taking this topic, which is it could have went anywhere. It
Right.
really, that's really cool. Way to pull this together. That's
Yeah.
outstanding.
Okay. Yeah. Um, Let me just throw this up there
Oh,
for
yeah.
Jim. Go ahead. I'll let you.
Oh, let's say Jim, our resident Santa, Jim here is not sure how close you are, but Santa will be in Bethlehem Thursday at 5 as door number 19 of their live Advent calendar. All right. I will unfortunately will not be that close, but
No.
those listening and those in the area of Bethlehem, please make sure you stop by and see Santa.
Hmm.
Very cool, Jim. I can't imagine you're by the end of next week you're going to be on vacation. I hope, and taking yourself to the Bahamas or something. I don't know. When we were at Disney back in April in Florida, there was and I took a picture of the fellow. I was at a resort passing through to get breakfast. I think breakfast with one of the celebrity things, like the characters,
Uh-huh.
um, at the Polynesian, and it was just cool because then Mickey and Minnie and all those guys are wearing like Hawaiian shirts and stuff. But we're standing up at the upper level where the restaurant was and looking down at the lobby, and there was a gentleman who could well be Santa Claus by beard and body type and everything, wearing a T-shirt where he is Santa Claus is like yelling at the elves, and I couldn't quite read it, but I'm assuming it was something in the production, like "Get to work, slacker" or something, like is what it
Hmm.
said. But I can only imagine. He was been on a long vacation at that point in April, but
Hmm.
making his way back to the north. So hope you find some time for some rest there, Jim. Thanks for all you're doing.
Hmm.
Bring some joy.
Yes.
Appreciate you.
So,
And I do
should
want
we?
to go back to a comment here from Heather. I can feel the warmth of the fire and the smell of hot chocolate when you were calling the whole thing together. So,
Okay.
uh, well done. And say hi to obviously Jim. Bert's with us. Kathy, our friend John Covey's joined us. Thanks, John.
Hmm.
Good to see you again.
Yep. Kathy's a good friend of mine. I've known for years.
Good. Very cool. Well, welcome
Nine
all.
o'clock's past her bedtime, but she stayed up with me. So I appreciate that,
Yeah,
Kathy.
some exceptions once in a while, right?
Hmm.
Special cause.
So, but yeah, it's good to see all our friends coming out and joining us this time of year, and just
Yeah,
we really appreciate it every week. But as we move into the holiday season, we really appreciate every one of you. So thank you.
yeah, absolutely. It's been a fun year, and we obviously we were remiss without saying thank you.
Hmm.
As we are done for the year actually. So next year's always looking forward to the new year and the new episodes, but the downtime to recharge a little bit and refresh.
Hmm. So and it's that time of change, and if you look in the lower right hand corner of our screen, you
Yeah,
will see a
there it
new
is.
logo for Jotnik's Paranormal. Um, I don't have it to bring up full size, but we're making some adjustments to the team next year and changing some things up. So looking forward to see where that leans. Keeping out an eye out on our website on Saturday because there's a really cool video coming out, Jamie, with a transition from one logo to another. So
Excellent. I'm
so
so looking forward to it.
yeah, there's that. Should we go ahead and talk about what's coming up?
Yeah, speaking of change, let's and looking ahead, here we go, right?
Hmm.
So coming up, obviously we're out. We're on vacation, I believe we can safely say, or
Hmm.
holiday break for the next 2 weeks, so the 24th and 31st. But we'll be back and going at it on January 7th, and I will be the host that evening for the Woman of the Rain painting. Coming behind that, and gush, Chad, that word.
Hold a folk.
Hold the phone. That's what we decided we were going to call it last week. Hold the phone. Chad will take that on the 14th, and then the 21st, we're going to stay in the spooky stuff realm with Robert the Doll. And then on January 28th, to wrap up the first month of the new year, Chad's going to tackle the Philadelphia experiment. and I'm actually looking forward to this one. It's one of
Yeah.
my favorite topics. So, and I know it has nothing to do with what the Philadelphia 76ers have been doing these last bunch of years, but
Hmm.
I'm gonna have some fun with that as a joke anyway.
Okay. So, and if you have knowledge, Jamie, I'm looking forward to your input on it as well for the discussion. So,
Well, I read up on it, a
okay.
little bit, and it's an interesting. I'm not going to say much here,
Yeah.
obviously, to give too much away, but the the premise of what supposedly is the case is really really interesting to me. So,
Hmm.
um, we'll see where we get there. You can follow us on social media, the usual stuff. Obviously, if you're here with us, this is a live podcast, if you can tell by our babbling. Um, but we are here on Facebook and YouTube on Tuesdays at 9. Obviously, not the next 2 weeks, but coming back on the 7th. We'll be on all the streaming services tomorrow, sometime mid morning, mid afternoon in that window. Um, and therefore after in perpetuity. But the idea is if you can't catch us here, catch us there.
Hmm.
Um, and of course, this is recorded too, so you can always catch us whenever, wherever works best for you. We just appreciate you being along for the ride. We also have a TikTok, Instagram for Jotnick's Paranormal, and you can find us if you have something you want to share with us, I should say. You can find us at Paranormal Lens Podcast at gmail.com. So, ideas for upcoming episodes, stories of your own you'd like to share with us, feedback on how we're doing, any of that good stuff, drop us a line. We certainly are not shy on doing listener submission episodes. We've done quite a few already over the last year and a half. So there's always room for more, and we'll juggle our schedule to get it in as soon as possible. Just a little time to do some research on it. Um, and then we do have a live tree, which is a conglomeration of all of the social stuff. And and it's a really small link here for me, Chad. Can you give me a boost?
It's linktr.ee and then backslash paranormal lens. So Linktree.
Yeah,
If you go
with
on
that
if you go on the Linktree site and search for paranormal lens, I'm pretty sure we're the only one there.
we're the only ones that come up. Yep,
So,
which is
so,
great.
Heather wished us a wonderful Christmas and see you next year. And Jim says, really appreciate all the hard work you're doing. Thank you. And looking forward to a good and healthy 2025.
And there we are. Absolutely. Same to you, sir.
So,
Same to everyone. Let's be happy and healthy.
yeah.
Let's be here for each other.
So, we don't have the schedule for next year. It's getting closer.
Yet
Um,
we know
uh,
there is one, so
yes,
that's good
yes.
news.
Um, I think we're waiting for a couple dates to be confirmed, and then we should be able to start publishing that. So hopefully on the 7th, we'll have some information for you. So,
Yeah, we should by then,
yeah.
certainly. Uh, so Bert says, I don't know what we're going to do the next 2 Tuesdays. Merry Christmas, guys. Bert, I have an idea for next week at least. Spooky Halloween, or yeah, spooky Halloween, spooky Christmas ghost stories. Share with each other
Yeah. We
around the
challenge
fire
you,
with
everybody, to
whatever.
find a ghost story and tell it to your family.
There you go. And see if they welcome you to come back next year. Um,
True.
this might be your way out. Really, it could be. I don't know.
Depends what you're looking for.
Depends what
So,
you're looking for. Exactly. Or it might just be a new tradition, and all of a sudden there it is. So
yeah. So,
you never know until you start it.
so true, Jamie. So true. So, well, I think that's about it, Jamie. Unless
Yeah.
you get something else, I think we just say happy holidays, Merry Christmas. I know I'll be seeing you over the next couple weeks, but I
Yeah.
hope you have a wonderful holiday. Get to spend time with the family and friends, and the time you're taking, the time you've been given off work, you get to appreciate that and
Yep.
relax a little bit.
I like
Get
to
the
call it the time I have to use or lose, but hey, same thing, right?
uh-huh.
Um, and thank you, Chad. I appreciate that. I want to say thanks to you too. All of this, the pretty stuff you all see is because of Chad Thomas. And I don't say that lightly. I say that in all sincerity and intentionality. The the carry of all of this is it's all heavy work for a lot of us, both of us. I want to step back to say thanks to David Deromedi, our original co-host, as well. You
Hmm.
know, all of you guys for vision and intentionality of getting this product out to the world. And it's a labor of love. It really is. So thank you to everyone who's watching and who has watched in the past. I know you're not hearing me if you're not watching, but um, it means a lot to us, and we appreciate you. And Oh, Jim's already given us homework. Goodness. All right, so next year we're gonna start working on the drones issue. Apparently, Erica was not here tonight because she's out circling for drones.
Uh-huh.
Um, but folks in Jersey, stay safe with all this stuff flying around the neighborhood. It
Yeah,
is not reindeer at this point, so
and Jamie, it's not just Jersey.
it's not anymore, right?
No, I actually driving
You're up to speed.
what's that?
You got up to speed on this?
I did actually, driving I was at work, had to go to work to pick something up, and I work in Lidditz, and came the back way through some of the fields, and had a pretty clear view of the sky, and at one point, I saw 5 different things flying around that weren't on the flight tracker radar,
Yep.
and, I was near the Lancaster airport, but if there were 5 things at the sky at once at the Lancaster airport, it was definitely paranormal
There you go.
because they or something else, but,
Right.
not normal, so
Not normal. It's like the classification is paranormal. There is not normal.
right.
Where do
So,
we fit into this class? I
not
don't know.
normal.
Not normal. Yeah. Answer my own question. Duh.
So,
Yeah. So go outside and look up every once in a while. You might see some interesting things, right?
yeah, definitely, so and not just drones, but the stars in the sky, all that fun stuff,
Oh
so
yeah, the moon's beautiful tonight. I was out walking the dog before we came on. It's beautiful out there tonight, and of course, I don't know where y'all are in the world, but it's 50 here in South Central PA today, so it was a great day. So
mhm. Well, cherish that because it's gonna start getting
I
cold.
know winter is coming. I'm aware.
On that note, it Christmas and cold go together here in Pennsylvania, so
Fingers are crossed for a white Christmas.
yeah,
So let's
so
let's see. As long as it melts away by the afternoon, I'm great. No worries.
so, alright.
Well, Merry Christmas, everyone. Happy New Year. We'll
Yep,
see you all on January 7th. And again, take care of each other and have a wonderful time. Happy
yep.
holidays.
Happy holidays, everybody.